Got it. Hey guys, welcome to the next session. It's me again. I know it's not Chris. All of you guys were expecting that. And I've got a different background. But we're happy to close off TMF week day 4 today with this wonderful session with Brandon and Jared. We've been having way too much fun backstage, so I know you guys are in for a very good time. So without further ado, I'll get quickly into the housekeeping, but everyone can hear me. Chat, let me know if you can hear us and that everything's good. You can see the screen. And then I will move on. So we got some first housekeeping. We got all the sessions, like we were saying, are going to be recorded. They're going to be posted at the end of the day tomorrow. So don't worry. There's your confirmation. You guys are all going to get a certificate for the entire TMF week at the end of the week. And we're going to do 15 minutes of QA at the end of the session. You guys know the drill. Most of you have been here. If you're just tuning in now, welcome. If you've been here with us, thank you for staying. And I hope you've been having a great time. We're not doing a networking break after this because this is our last session for today. So don't worry about that. But we'll just go over the session timeline once again. So we're going to have 30 minutes of the presentation from Brandon and Jared here. We're going to do 15 minutes of QA. And then, I'm going to introduce the next session, which is going to be at 9 a.m. with me again tomorrow morning. So you guys get me twice. Good for you. And then, we're going to, without further ado, I will let Brandon and Jared take it away.
Thanks so much, Danny. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. I think I need to start off first. I know I created some controversy, a little friction of my LinkedIn post announcing that we'd be presenting. So I do want to make sure everyone's aware that despite my photo, I do have a neck for which that photo was not showing. So we're going to get going. We are doing how that there's too much friction. Strategies for engaging all TMF stakeholders. Just a legal disclaimer that our comments, discussion points, things that we say is of our own ideas and does not represent the viewpoints or ideas of our employees or Montreal and TMF Week. A little bio. Go ahead, Brandon.
Thank you. So I won't read what's there. The main takeaways, my background. So I've worked site side, I've been on the CRO side, been on sponsor, I've been a consultant. So I've done worked a couple different hats. But the main thing is I definitely have a passion for TMF. So I've been in leadership roles. I've worked on new projects. I think my profile is that I'm a TMF trailblazer, which is fun. I never considered myself that, but I love the survey from Montreal. And my superpower is affection for inspection, because I really love the chance for TMFers to shine. And it's really the area where we would get to showcase like all of our hard works. We may be unsung or, depending on the organization, but inspection is really the time where we come through and everyone's looking to us for answers. So I really love inspections and have been through a lot of them, a lot of health authorities. So that's my superpower. I'll turn it over to you, Jared.
Thanks. Well, for those that know me, you know that TMF is my life, so much so that I actually tatted myself up. TMF life. Live it, breathe it, be it. TMF man. So I've been in the realm for quite some time, from paper to electronic, big CROs to little tiny startup pharma companies, just enjoying this world of TMF. I really like breaking down the complex, because really when you get into it, and we'll talk about it during this presentation, is, people outside the TMF have hesitations of using it. It's new, it's complex, they don't want to make mistakes. So really my background is really breaking those down into smaller, simple processes for people to understand, and then come away with more of an enjoyment of using TMF than a fear of using TMF. And so TMF champion. So TMF life, y'all. TMF. All right. So what is friction? This is, scientifically showing, if you, like me, live in the South and have run in those hot, humid days, you know what friction's like. basically the pushing force against a stable object, causing friction and stressful moments.
Yep, I just think simply it's just that resistance, right? So we all face resistance, whether you're TMF or non-TMF, right? There's certain aspects of clinical trials in general, right, that you have to overcome some kind of resistance. It's not easy what we do, in the TMF realm. I know we usually work cross-functionally and with different teams, and you're definitely going to encounter it. So if you haven't, you will. That's a promise for you. And so we definitely want to focus on just kind of what is this resistance and some of the ways we can overcome it.
Exactly. Just kind of lessen the friction. It'll probably always be there in the background, especially with certain personalities, because really you do touch on everyone on a clinical study, as well as other departments that may not have a full hand in the trial that's occurring. So, personalities and relationships also fit into this frictional aspect.
Yep, it's natural. Don't run from it. It's expected, right? It's not a surprise. It's actually part of what is designed, right, with the role. So just embrace it, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
All right. What are some of the causes of friction? So the barrel, for those that may not know their history, represents a powder keg, which is used often to describe the start of World War I, the causes. And what we're really trying to do is understand that this powder keg represents a lot of frictional issues that you encounter in the TMF. And we'll go through each of these points and kind of talk about them and give examples of how they lead to friction. And really what we want to do in this presentation is to ensure that the match doesn't hit that powder keg and ignite it. Because when it ignites, it just explodes. And it affects everything. It affects relationships. It affects study teams. It affects people processing or sending their documents in, and timelines, and really auditors and inspection readiness. So we'll go through these and really talk about it. But the idea is that, if you let things build and build and build and build, the friction is going to be too great and it will just explode off. So, Brandon?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we have on the slide here on the screen, some of the causes, right, that can cause friction. I think it all really starts with that first one, not understanding TMF importance or unclear guidance. So those are at the top, because I think a lot can be solved through those, to be honest. I think that's really where it starts. The friction is just really misunderstanding of the importance of TMF, or maybe miscommunication in the task. Obviously there's time and availability, right? People have competing priorities all the time. Different people, division of labor, are expected to do different things. Depending on your organization, you might wear a lot of hats, or you might be very specific in a silo and do one part of it. Lack of leadership support is something that, I wanted to put on the slide, because it really means that you need that buy-in, right, from somebody or some stakeholders, and it really needs to be important from the top down. And I think that helps with the culture. We'll talk about that a little bit. We do have the new TMF versus established TMF. So there's different types of friction there. Just overcoming the kind of initial resistance to start something new and do that change management is a little bit different than doing change management for a system that's already in place and established, right? So that's something you have to think about. And then as far as lack of engagement, that's really about what we're talking about today, right? I think, people disengage when there's a lot of friction, a lot of resistance. They don't understand, why all these things really play into that. And so, we really try to engage our stakeholders most of the time in two key areas. And it's usually like when we're developing our plans, or when we're doing our quality reviews, periodic reviews, whatever you call them in your organization. And then sometimes there can be friction between maybe the relationship that you're in, or the role that you're in, whether it's CRO over sponsor, or maybe the vendor you're working with. That might be another piece of that. So, on the next slide, we'll really talk about how you can snuff out the flame of friction, and what are some of the things we can do to reduce that friction, and what's been effective for us. So, Jared, I'll let you start off.
Actually, Brandon, I'm going to go back.
Oh, so sorry.
So no, yeah, a little friction here, but we're gonna talk through it. We're gonna get through it. It's okay. So I think one of the key things, like you had mentioned, is understanding or people not understanding the TMF importance. So I always like to remind people that for many people on study teams, again, this is my own thoughts, TMF is at the bottom. I mean, let's face it, folks. We know that on every agenda, where's TMF? The TMF topics are at the bottom of the agenda. How much time? Oh, we're almost out of time. You got a minute to give your 20-minute? Yes. But I always like to remind people that while the study team, the importance of the TMF may be lower than other areas, for inspectors, for auditors, TMF is of high importance. You know, if we're trying to get these drugs or whatever your company may be working on to market or to the next phase, you know, that is really where the key importance of TMF is. So it's just kind of reminding everyone that, you know, in the big scope of things, you know, TMF does play an important role. And it's getting, you know, that leadership support and understanding, because I'm sure many people on this call may have line managers or upper level management that have been in the industry for quite a long time, but they don't even understand the TMF and the impact that it plays for the study itself. So I think those are kind of areas of friction that we're going to walk through and talk about. And then really, yeah, like, you know, new TMFs versus established. It could be a situation of a migrated study, or your company decides to switch to a different TMF system, and just getting people to get comfortable with using that new system after they, I've never used that system. How do I use it? Why do I have to use a system? But then, you know, being there and being able to work through those, I think will be clear. Thanks, Brandon, for letting me.
Fantastic.
I appreciate it.
I hope you feel heard and understood. And I'm glad we're able to solve this friction between us.
It's easing. It's still a little there, but we're going to snuff it out, I think.
Maybe by then we'll see where we land. If we're frenemies or enemies or foes or, you know, trusted partners or something, we'll see.
That's true. All right. So
I'll let you go into this one. That's what I was going to say. You know, you got to acknowledge it. You did a great job. I want to call out such an amazing job that you did. Step one, hey, something's going on here. You got to acknowledge it. And then you got to identify.
You have those uncomfortable conversations, but that's, you know, you work through it.
So the cause was, I'm so excited to talk about all these reasons of friction. It's, you know, it's a passion, definitely a super, like, what do I call it? Like engaging, like it really ignites me. You know, we're talking about friction and flames, but stakeholder engagement and friction is something, you know, that has helped me in my career. I saw in the comments, it's good for growth, right? And I thought that was fantastic, because really, you know, when you're able to identify these root causes and what's causing the friction, and then even just brainstorm solutions, like that's already a win, right? If you can actually get it to the other side and actually get it to that resolution at the end of it, fantastic win for life, just working that out in that conflict resolution piece, but also especially big for TMF and you know, the things that we love and are near and dear to us as TMFers. So I'll let you go to the next bullet, Jarrett.
Yeah, so really, I think it's just meeting with the stakeholders. You know, I think establishing the norms that you have, that availability, and really the openness to make sure that people really do understand and really, in some ways, enjoy that it's not as scary as they may have thought, and just having those, you know, either meeting as a study team as a whole, meeting one-on-one. I've done training office hour sessions. I'm sure many people on this call have done that or thought of doing it, but it really, if you haven't done it yet, it's really helpful. And even some of my studies, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, TMF is usually at the bottom of the agenda, is setting up those one-off, maybe once a month meetings with the project leads of your CRO or of your, depending on what side you're on, of the sponsor, and just really dedicate that to the TMF. I think, you know, acknowledging some of the friction and, you know, what the areas may be that people need to work through, just having that little one-off call can really button up some of those frictionless areas and kind of snuff out those flames. And Brandon, go ahead.
That naturally leads to the last bullet, right? So when you have the meeting of the minds, right? When you know, you've called it out, you've worked through like what's the cause, and you actually meet with the person. And I didn't say email the person, right? I didn't say text your best friend about what that person's doing. No, meet with the stakeholder, meet with the source of the friction or representative or designee, somebody that is, is representing that source of friction's perspective. The meeting isn't just for you to meet and say, hey, you got to do it my way. I'm going to tell on you, I'm going to get my leadership to go to your leadership. And, we're in a battle. That's not what we're trying to do here, right? We're talking about snuffing out the flame, not adding jet fuel to it, right? So we want to de-escalate at times when you have a conflict, right? And so escalation is sometimes needed, but we're talking about how can you ease it before it gets to that point, which I think is important. I think we all know how or naturally think, hey, let me move this up the chain and see if they can support. But I think before you go to that step, it's really important to really, kind of take a step back, see what's going on. Maybe it's just communication, maybe it's really, it could be time zone. There's so many different, it could be culture, right? There's so many different possibilities why there could be friction. I believe it really starts with just like lack of understanding or guidance. So if you can break it down, which is Jared's superpower, if you're able to break down complex things and say, look, TMF's not that hard. You have this document. I want you to put it here, and buy this, right? That's what it is, right? And so a conversation usually helps to de-escalate. I'm gonna say I do mean a discussion. I don't mean written. I can say that because emails can be misinterpreted, text messages or whatever other platform you use for intra-office communication, Teams, whatever, it can be miscommunicated. So, have a one-to-one, like Jared said. I think that's so amazing. Have a one-to-one, and you can have a group later, but it starts with that one-to-one, and that's definitely the real way to really work through that friction. Now you and that person you're having friction with, or that organization, could be CRO versus sponsor, it could be sponsor versus vendor, CRO versus vendor. There's so many different ways. Whoever versus site, CRA versus everyone, we don't know, right? We got some examples, but in my experience, there's been no real resolution without the discussion, right? You can't just escalate up and think you're gonna get a real solution. You might get a quick fix, right? You might get someone removed from the project or something, that you think is a win, but you haven't addressed the root cause. So you definitely have to figure out and identify that source of what's causing it. Is it your style? Could be you. Look in the mirror. I said it. Yep, I said it. I'm not going to apologize.
You did not say that.
You could be the source of that friction, and that is part of providing a real solution sometimes. Now, if you look in that mirror and you like what you see, then maybe it's the other person, and it's a people management thing. So, as TMFers, we have to be careful to control what we can control, and it's very I'll say it's very limited. Even though we hold ourselves to a high regard, right? We talk about our superpowers and inspection readiness, and we're the ones that people rely on when there's an inspection, when there's an audit. Sure, like when there's some kind of calls to focus on TMF. But I say typically we're the background cast for every other function. Every other function has their cape on for something else that they do, right? If it's clinical, they're trying to solve problems, meet timelines, get recruitment. If it's data management, that database is just like our TMF systems, right? It's a lot to manage, a lot of system work sometimes, right? A lot of people are in multiple studies, etc. And a lot of people do join projects that might not be related to your day-to-day, right? You might not even know about them, to be honest. So you really have to think about time management. That could be a solution for friction. Could be just simply, hey, man, I need 15 minutes every week from you. I need 1 hour a month. I need just once a quarter, 4 hours uninterrupted, whatever it is, work with that person. And I think as you chat about it, you can get to that real solution. Jared, what's your take on that?
Yeah, you touched on something about a lot of times we are the face of the TMF department. So, I've been on studies where CRAs, it's just not a good fit, and they removed the CRA. Well, it's hard to remove a TMF person if they're the main person. If it's an issue with one particular study, not an ongoing thing. So it's really just having those conversations. Early in my career, I had there was an issue came up, some friction over some documents and placeholders. And, through email, it really started brewing. That match was getting close. It was getting real close to that barrel of powder keg. And then you know what happened? We had a meeting. The flame went out. We understood each other's positions. And we were able to work through it. So, like you said, sometimes tone in the email, the voice in your head reads it one way, which is different from how the person was typing it in their head. So I think really a lot of these can be done through that conversations.
Yeah, I love that, and there's something, we talk about analysis of friction in the beginning, right? That's like the first step. Hey, what's going on? What's the source? But as far as solutions, right? You have to acknowledge whoever that friction's with has their own agenda that is probably misaligned with yours for that moment until you can work through it, right? So you have to find some compromise sometimes. Maybe you can't have everything you wanted, and that's okay. I know we're all pretty much spoiled and entitled and love getting our way. At least I do. Maybe I'm speaking for myself and projecting on our audience here.
Well, we have we're used to electronic TMFs, and other places they're paper. So in some respects we are spoiled too. Yeah.
Yep, and I want to point out too that this is a generic, this slide is no frills, no thrills, right? This is very simple because it could be internal friction, it could be external friction, it could be literally interpersonal. Maybe you're dealing with something rough and you're at work trying to power through it. You're sick, something happened, whatever, and these things are things you need to think about when you're really trying to figure out the cause. Did you have a moment where you're reactive? Right? Was somebody else reactive because something else they're going through that's not work related? So I'll just say acknowledge the human factor of it. And if your friction is a system, acknowledge the system factor of it, right? We're all fallible. And keep that in mind. And that's why we really want everyone to do those steps in that order, right? Don't skip to trying to get to solutions before you've done the previous, right? Don't meet with the stakeholder, or maybe you'll identify the calls with the stakeholder, as you have that discussion. But don't jump to solutions if you haven't looked at the issue, right? You really need to understand it. It helps to have some metrics or some kind of snapshot, some visual. A lot of people are visual. If you got some documentations, we're TMFers, we got the documentation. You need to come with that. We need facts and we need some due diligence before we go up the chains of escalation. And certainly if that's needed, by all means escalate. That's certainly a solution pathway that I've used a ton of times. So with that, Jared, anything else you want to say about this?
I would just say, just remind yourself that you're the SME of the TMF, and others in other departments aren't. So certainly they will come to you with those questions that you're like, how many times have I told you this? But but it's because you're in it every day. You're living in it, and the idea is just for them, it's huge for them, an issue, and for you, it's like, oh no, that was 1, 2, 3 clicks, and that's how you solve it. And again, it might have just been a 2-minute phone call. Awesome. But yeah, so I think we need to. What do we got to do next, Brandon?
We gave some examples there, but on this slide, we talked about some different areas where you might run into that friction and how to lubricate it. I always say your TMF plan and index, or whatever you call it, your filing structure and naming conventions, or your library, or your whatever you call it at your organization. You need some documentation. We're TMFers. Your SOPs are written in a way probably that allows some subjectivity so that you can fit it for purpose to your project or your study that you're working on, right? They're not meant to be a one size fit all, but that's where your plan and index really are able to add that context, right? Another way we lubricate is through our quality reviews. And it's not just the review itself of looking at it, but it's also that whole process can look different at different organizations. Again, I use that TMF quality review phrase loosely because it can mean different things to different people. But these are ways that you can kind of encourage engagement, right, with other parties, right? It should be part of the process that these third parties or these non-TMFers or even the TMFers within your organization are engaging with each other, right? It's not done in a silo. It's not done, it doesn't matter if the CRO is writing or the sponsor or whatever, who's responsible on the Toro. It really doesn't matter because it's really a partnership, right? Like TMF is so important to the entire success of the trial, maybe to the company, depending on where you're at. You really have to work together with others, and that's really just a couple places where you can do that. Jared?
Yeah, I mean, like for where I am, like a lot of people think the TMF is the eTMF, but it's really all the systems that hold the documents for the clinical trial. So one of the things that we've done is taken that index and we've color coded it. So it identifies, yes, we are expecting this document for the study. It's not going to be kept in our eTMF, but it'll be found in this other system as part of it. So, that really helps support people's understanding of the different documents, maybe for their own area or someone else's area, and really having a clear TMF plan that really identifies the key areas. Anything from should we have zip files? Are there wet ink documents? Does anyone know on this call know what certified copies means? Just really spell things out, right? Because it's a certified copy. I don't get it. And in the quality reviews, I always say the pendulum is swinging in that now functional leads are the ones that are doing the quality reviews. They're not, it doesn't rely all on the CTAs or all on TMF person, because functional leads are the experts of their own documents. So, having those discussions and creating guidance documents, like a step-by-step, breaking it down for them to show them, this is your section, maybe even walk them through their particular part of the index, to get that buy-in and make it clear. And then, early on friction, certainly as the studies evolve, as your company grows, what may not have been an issue earlier, maybe months or years from now will become one. I mean, you have to remember too, we talked about, CRAs, and they may come and go from studies. Oftentimes TMF people are on there. These studies can go for years. It's not like a 2-3 months, move on to the next project. It could go on for months and years. So really having that kind of understanding and then taking that, what you learned, and then applying it to new studies that may come, whether at your current position or in the future, and just taking that knowledge so you can kind of work through friction so it doesn't occur when you're with another place or another study team. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and I'll just, for time's sake, just talk about the last bullet because it's my favorite one. So I saved the best for last.
Woo-hoo!
Find an ally. Find an ally. Find a friend, a champion, someone to influence wherever that influence may be. So, right, different people might have different influence with different organizations or different departments. It doesn't have to be in the C-suite, right? A lot of people, maybe someone's on 20 projects and has a really good relationship with everybody because they work all the time with everybody. Maybe someone worked with a particular client, right? And they have that. So find your ally who knows kind of, your friction target audience. Yeah, your endpoints. There you go. And use them to help you strategize, right, on how you can better influence that particular stakeholder, right, or organization or whatever, because you definitely need that kind of context, right, from somebody who you trust, right, and it needs to be somebody who can be honest with you and that you actually trust, right. You can't go to somebody who maybe they'll tell you something but might not serve you or whatever, or they're not that familiar with it. So as a TMFer, like it's easy to be kind of I'll say you can be real introverted in this role. To be honest, I'm not. I'm extroverted, so but I'll say it's easy to be introverted and kind of be recluse. We a lot of us work remotely. I do. So it's important to seek out people within and outside of your organization that can be a reference for you, or even just like a source of encouragement, or really just a sounding board to throw some ideas off. There's a ton of people here at TMF Week, right, that we've been in the lounge, so many good sessions, so many good speakers. They're willing to reach out, and help you out, make a contact, make a friend while you're here. And so I just wanted to really focus on that one, because a lot of times if you don't have the solutions yourself, maybe somebody else can that has that experience or that relationship.
Very well said. I think, if we go back a slide, I think, for this industry, there's always questions that come up. And I know I've reached out to you, Brandon, several times. I mean, we haven't actually worked together in maybe 3 or 4 years, but you're on my speed dial, my text chain when I do have questions. And you had brought up to me like, oh yeah, Jared, I have all these allies in different areas, and I was like, gosh, I don't have any. And then I was like, no, wait, I do. I know people that have worked that work with IRT system, project managers. So if you really sit back and think, because as you move in this role in this industry and you grow, the people that you're working with will also grow, and they'll expand as well, and they'll network. So while you may not have worked with somebody in several years, as you've progressed in your career, so have they, and they've gained that knowledge. So if you keep those relationships going, a lot of times issues that you're seeing, that friction that's coming up, is probably similar to what they've experienced. And then you can, like you said, Brandon, just kind of send them a message and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. What's the best way? This is this person's personality, or this study team is going through this. And it really, really does help. It really helps you just kind of ease through that friction. And it's great. So I do, like Brandon said, encourage you to reach out for these, TMF weeks, and find that ally, because you never know when they'll need you and you need them.
Yeah, and you can do that respectfully. Jared mentioned at one point we did work together. We don't work together now, but it was really easy to collaborate. You can do that respectfully to all your, company protected data and all that stuff, all the privacy. And, you don't need to sign an NDA, right? Just to work with someone casually, and really just to ask, have you ever faced this type of issue before, right? You don't have to say, hey, this company that I work with this system, is doing that, be careful about that. So I do want to just put that out there, that, you are able to do that respectfully to the business organization, also like in a way that you respect everyone's privacy and confidentiality, as well as the business too.
Like, oh, I'm asking for a friend who has this rash, just, keep it very generic, but that you get your answer.
Hypothetically, do you know the TMF thug Jared? Because I've worked with him in the past, and
so he's an odd duck.
So I think it's a good time for questions. I mean, this is where we really want to engage with you. We love the participation that we've seen. We've seen a lot of Q&A questions come through. So I don't know, Danny, if you want to maybe pick a few to rattle off, and Jared and I can try to tackle them.
Yep, exactly. So I've been picking a couple. I even asked one in the chat. So here we'll throw up the first one from Hader. So Hader says, can you share some personal examples of successful stakeholder engagement in TMF management with different departments? And here
you want to go, or you want me to go?
Our slide off too. So
so I had one where it was another department talking about where we should store documents, whether in their system, in our system, and we just kind of laid out the their viewpoints, and we expressed our viewpoints. And then we came to a mutual decision of where these documents will reside. So, and again, it goes back to color coding, the index to help, where it identifies the documents expecting this for the study, and then where that document would finally reside. And I think all parties walked away satisfied with that answer.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback off that, because I do have some specific departments in mind, right? Like, we work with the safety group a lot, right? They might have their own database, their own system, their own vendor. They might have requirements and other plans, right? That they're doing it this way. So you do have to be respectful of that. I've gotten a demo of other functional area systems. That's been amazing, by the way. Mm-hmm. If you can get that done for your TMF group, I highly recommend it. And then you can see like, oh, okay, they do have their own system. It is GXP. Like, I don't really have to worry about it, right? Or I've gotten a demo that's like, nah, that's SharePoint. That's not going to
Yeah,
work.
why is it SharePoint?
Sorry, your box is not
Microsoft,
going to
right?
cut it, right? You know, like, you know,
PHP,
thank you for
right?
showing me and increasing my anxiety, right? So, you know, I would say do a little show and tell is my best recommendation when you're working with other groups. You show them your system, what you can do, whatever, where you're putting it. You know, if you use the reference model, fantastic. If you don't, you're using something else. Explain that to them. You know, break it down. Here's what we do. Here's how it looks. Here are the clicks. You know, it's really easy. Here's how it looks for you. You know, it might look a little different for me. Don't let that confuse you. You know, some of us are like admins and things like that. So, you know, keep it simple for them. Keep their perspective in there, but also give them an opportunity to just kind of brag and show off their systems or whatever they're doing that they're so excited about. Like, hey man, look at this folder on my desktop. Man, I got everything. Look, I got 1,000 in there. You know, only 20 minutes. You know, let them go for it because you'll learn something. You know, let them brag on it. But you know, I do think you know, it's very important that you do have to take the ownership of like initiating that. I don't think the other functions are going to be like, oh, hey, you're in TMF. Like, yeah, let me take an hour of my day to show you my system. They're not. So, you know, as TMFers, we really need to be in control. That's what I say, right? If you want to be the person that people are relying on for inspection readiness, you kind of have to take authority and say, hey, look, I respect everything you do. I want you to respect what I do. I just want a conversation. Show me this, show me that. Like, I got a deadline, you got a deadline. You know, you got to make it clear, set your expectations. And, you know, I think you don't have to solve it all in the first conversation either. You know, make it regular. You can schedule it out. Hey, would it be okay with you if I had 30 minutes? However, you know, long makes sense. Once a month, once a quarter, once a year. I don't know. But, you know, be intentional about having those discussions with other functions.
Yeah, I've learned that, you know, there's very few things that are urgent. You know, it's just you can put it out in you know, and just make sure you get it right. So it may take a few weeks, it may take a few months. There's different processes that have to maybe neither side's thought of. And like you said, maybe some departments just want to be heard. They want their say, their 2 minutes to explain their position.
Absolutely. Well, so we'll move on to this was kind of a bit covered a little bit, but this is my question. I was saying, you know, what should you look for in an ally with influence in the organization? How would you personally ask around and kind of and find someone? You know,
I'll let you answer because I got to plug my computer in, Brandon.
Yeah.
One moment.
Yeah. So typically the way I approach it is, you know, I start with the people you met first. So whether you interviewed with somebody or something like that, you know, at some point you had to get into your company or your department. Start there and then start with the projects you're actually assigned to, right? That's the next place logically for me. So if I'm working with somebody for whatever study or whatever project or, you know, whatever senior person, because that's what I need to do, that's a natural starting point. So look for where you already have relationships that exist because you do, you know, you might have to think about it, but certainly no TMFer or even non-TMFers working alone, not in this industry.
No silos.
Yeah, this is not happening. You're working with people, you're working cross-functionally, whether you realize it or not. And, you know, maybe look at the name on the document, who uploaded it, whatever you have to do, you know, but there's so many kind of starter points. And then when it comes to influence, right? So you may have a contact, but they may not be influential. You know, maybe they are negatively influencing you.
Yeah,
you know, you might separate yourself sometimes. Like, whoa, I know that person said you could keep it all on a floppy disk in your house, but you know, I'm telling you, it needs to go in the system or whatever. You know, so you know, it goes both ways. You know, but I think it starts with you know, start where you're at. Right, you might not have the answers, but maybe one relationship can lead you to the next, and so that's how it's happened for me a lot of times. You know, I might just say, okay, who's this person? I'm working with them. Okay, you know, they might be low on the proverbial hierarchy or totem pole or whatever, right? But they have a manager, they have somebody they report to. Their division may have somebody they report to, right? Everyone's got kind of a chain of command. Even the CEO has a board of directors, right? So it's like, you know, there's always you can always go up, right? But you can also always go lateral and across, right? And I think you know, that's really my approach. So it's worked really well for me.
Amazing, because I feel like that's definitely something a lot of TMFers like want and need, right? You know, And so, and kind of a follow up to that from Carla, do you think many TMFers have a hard time breaking through to the stakeholders because many of us have a certain personality, like Brandon mentions, introverts?
I'm probably not the best person to answer this. I will say it can be challenging in general. Like if you are introverted, to make those relationships and really kind of seek out those connections intentionally. It's not your like natural kind of pathway of thinking. But so from that point of it, yes, it is a challenge. I won't say it's easy to build really good relationships and to really have stakeholders who are really giving you what you ask for, because I've definitely gone through engaging people only for them to be there for the meeting and be lost to follow up, after the meeting's over, in the session with whoever pulled us all together, and then they sound really good in the meeting, but afterwards it's like, come on, like it's been 2 months and I haven't heard from you, so it is a challenge. I won't sugarcoat that. It definitely can be a challenge. And I think like all challenges with practice, you get better, right? So you don't have to be at a certain level you have in your head. Like literally just start where you're at. If you're an email person, start with email. If you're text, start with text. If you're not a talker, that's fine, right? You can use Teams or Slack or Zoom or whatever you use. You can do off camera. You don't have to be on camera, right? So whatever you're comfortable with. I think the main thing is just show your intent, right? And I think that helps bridge that gap. You can literally say, I'm really shy. I hate meeting people. This is outside my comfort zone. And I think really somebody, that is going to be a trusted stakeholder will say, wow, that was really brave. Thank you for reaching out. Like, I'm happy to work with you. And you'll be surprised how people can show up for you, right? If they understand what you desire, right? And also if you make it easy to work with you. So
no, exactly. I 100% agree.
Perfect.
Well, guys, I don't know if we have 3 minutes left. If there's any last couple questions, you guys can throw them in. But yeah, we that was a great session, guys. Brandon, Jared, that was so fun. You guys can tell that you guys have a lot of fun while you're doing this. Like, I saw some people in the chat mentioning, you guys break it down with like, humor and making these analogies so digestible that I think everyone's going to be talking about the friction, and how we solve it with their teams after this. So
I will just say, if you are new in the industry, I don't think Brandon and I started out that way. So, it does take time and experience, like Brandon said, for us to, get that personality of understanding of the TMF. So,
for sure.
Don't give up if you're like,
fake it till you make it, which I think is hilarious.
What?
Somebody said fake it till you make it in the comments. I'm like, whoa, I'm a TMFer. Don't fake nothing over here. It's all real. I say start where you're at and work on it. I didn't say fake it now. Be your authentic self when you're showing up. Don't fake it till you make it, but start where you're at and keep growing and working on being, what you want to be in your own head.
Yeah, you're there for a reason, as Dr. Seuss would say.
Exactly. And and it's super important to mention that, because like people look at you guys and say, oh, look at these guys being so comfortable and like, on top of it. And, Jared, I think it's important that like everybody starts somewhere and, moving along and knowing kind of how to progress and having like that path is really important. Like seeing where you can end up. If you
I used to go in a little closet at work to like do my meetings because I, didn't want to be in a cubicle with people listening in as I talk about the TMF.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thanks,
I don't think there's any more questions. This has been fantastic. Brandon, Jared, thank you so much.